The next phase of this unfolding drama doesn't explode with sirens or flashing headlines. It tightens quietly, almost methodically, as the sheriff's team attempts to regain its footing under a microscope that never blinks, and you can sense the shift in tone as Jesse Waters revisits the storyline, not with outrage, but with that sharpened curiosity that asks whether early stumbles were simply nerves or something more structural, because in high-profile cases, the first press conference is rarely the last word. It's the opening move in a chess match between institutions, media, and public perception, and now every gesture becomes symbolic, every revised timeline a potential turning point, every clarification an opportunity either to steady the ship or confirm suspicions that the compass was never firmly set to begin with. Behind closed doors, one can imagine strategy sessions unfolding, legal advisors balancing caution against transparency, communication staff rehearsing phrasing that must be precise yet reassuring, and the sheriff weighing not just facts but optics, how to project command without appearing defensive, how to acknowledge uncertainty without surrendering authority, and Waters zeroes in on this delicate dance, arguing that crisis management is less about perfection and more about control, about projecting steadiness even when information is still coming together, because in the absence of visible confidence, the public fills in the blanks with doubt, and doubt spreads faster than any official memo ever could. The tension intensifies as competing narratives begin to form, some defending the department's measured approach, others insisting that the slow drip of updates signals deeper disorganization, and Waters frames this clash as emblematic of a larger national divide over trust in institutions where skepticism is no longer fringe but mainstream, and every procedural delay is interpreted through a political lens. In this environment, he suggests, a sheriff's office cannot rely solely on its badge or its history to command respect. It must actively earn it in real time, and that requires anticipating not just legal questions but emotional ones, understanding that communities don't merely want answers, they want to feel heard, and that feeling is often shaped by tone as much as substance. As the days progress, small details take on outsized significance, the phrasing of a written statement, the order in which updates are delivered, the choice of spokesperson, and Waters dissects these nuances like clues in a larger puzzle, pointing out that leadership is revealed in moments of pressure, not comfort. Does the team accept responsibility for confusion, or does it attribute misunderstandings to media interpretation? Does it lean into transparency with frequent briefings or retreat into controlled releases? And in each fork in the road lies a subtle but powerful signal about confidence and preparedness, because audiences today are attuned not just to what leaders say but to how they react when challenged. Meanwhile, the broader media ecosystem amplifies every development, commentators replaying clips, analysts debating whether the initial "not great start" comment was overly harsh or eerily accurate, and Waters leans into that debate, suggesting that critique itself can serve as a catalyst for improvement, that sometimes a public spotlight forces recalibration, compelling teams to sharpen protocols, tighten messaging, and confront vulnerabilities they might otherwise ignore. In this sense, the criticism becomes part of the process, an uncomfortable but potentially constructive pressure that tests whether the sheriff's office can adapt quickly enough to rewrite the narrative before it hardens permanently. Yet, beneath the strategic calculations lies a more human story. Professionals grappling with scrutiny, families seeking clarity, a community watching and waiting, and Waters' analysis hints at this undercurrent, reminding viewers that behind institutional titles are individuals navigating stress, fatigue, and expectation, and that resilience is measured not by the absence of error, but by the speed and sincerity of correction. The stakes are therefore not merely reputational but relational, because once public trust erodes, it is painstakingly difficult to restore, and every subsequent action now carries the weight of that first impression. As this chapter closes, the question shifts from whether the sheriff's team stumbled to whether it can demonstrate growth, whether the narrative of a shaky beginning evolves into one of steady leadership under fire, and Waters leaves the audience with a subtle but pointed challenge. Watch the follow-through, not just the flare-up. Judge the consistency of updates, the transparency of tone, the willingness to acknowledge missteps, because in the long arc of accountability, it is rarely the first step that defines an institution. It is the response to that step, and in this ongoing story, the cameras remain trained, the public remains attentive, and the final verdict has yet to be written.